Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. Today we just have a really brief video to explain one last concept in 4A. So, as I'm pulling this up, really hope you guys are doing well. We've been thinking of you. Please contact us if you ever need anything at all. We really are here for you guys, or else we wouldn't be teachers, I promise. Okay, so low-key, this is my third take. I really hope it goes well. Anyway, 4A, before we go on to our last thing that we're going to be learning, let's talk really quick about a couple of mistakes that we saw a whole bunch of times while we were talking about prepositions, like on top of, next to, close to, far from. So number one is using está instead of es. Remember last video we talked about the rhyme, how you feel and where you are, always use the verb estar. When you're saying that something is close to something else, above something else, that's location. That's where you are. So anytime we use one of those prepositions, we cannot use es. We have to use está. So we saw el gato es debajo de la mesa. That's wrong. It doesn't make much sense. In order for it to make sense, we have to use the verb está. El gato está debajo de la mesa. The second thing that we saw is that some prepositions use they at the end of the phrase, and some of them don't. Really, the vast majority of them do. There are only two on our list that do not. For example, you have cerca de, lejos de, a la izquierda de. They all have de. But here's an example that we saw that was wrong. El gato está entre de las mesas. There is no de in that preposition. You can see that by looking at your vocab list, which is right in the modules section of Canvas. It should just be el gato está entre las mesas. Unfortunately, there's no direct translation of the word de in this context. There's no specific word in English that goes in that place, but you really do need to look at your vocab list to know when there's a de and when there isn't. Number three, missing accents. So remember that we did a little while back an exercise where you had to look up the meaning of esta, esta, with no accent, and it meant this. So if you wrote the sentence, el gato está sobre la mesa, that would mean the cat, this, above the table. It doesn't really make sense. In order for it to make sense, we have to have an accent on that A. El gato está sobre la mesa. And finally, depending on Google Translate and not using the vocab list. Y'all think you're sneaky. You're not sneaky. We can tell because you come up with words that aren't on our vocab list when there are perfectly good words to fit the meaning of what we're asking for. So I'm all for learning words that we don't learn in class, and some of you I know are using Google Translate for that reason, and I understand, and I want you to keep being curious. But I need you to know that the lists that we give to you because in Spanish too, they expect you to know those words. So if you're going and just Google translating things, copy pasting it, first of all, you're not going to learn the words that you need to know for Spanish too. Second of all, you won't even know which ones they are because you haven't been looking at the list. So please make sure that you use that list as much as possible. Look there before you ever try to look something up on the internet. Okay, so for this last thing that we have to learn in 4A, we need the verb tener. Hopefully you remember that tener means to have, and you remember that it is a yo-go and stem changing verb, which means that it has go at the end in the yo form, and that one of the vowels in the middle of the verb is going to change whenever we conjugate it. So here it is in the yo form, tengo, then we have tienes, tiene, tenemos, tenéis, and tienen. Hopefully that rings a bell. It was the second verb that we ever learned, and we worked on it pretty recently. So what are we going to use to have to talk about? To talk about having to do something. So the formula for saying that is tener, que, and then the infinitive verb. Maybe you remember an infinitive verb is a verb that has not been conjugated. So instead of trabajo, which is in the yo form conjugated, trabajar is an infinitive verb, not conjugated. So whenever we use this formula, the only thing that actually has to change is tener, right at the beginning, to fit the person who has to do something. So For example, tengo que trabajar. I have to work. Now, you might notice that yo isn't in there. You can say yo tengo que trabajar. That's also correct and means the exact same thing. Now, if I want to say that somebody else has to do something, the only thing that I have to change is tener. For example, tienes que estudiar. You have to study. Again, you could say tú tienes que estudiar. That would also be perfectly correct. Now, you might be noticing, wait a minute, I thought that que meant what? What's going on here? We've been talking about the importance of accents. Que with an accent on the E does mean what? But when que has no accent, it no longer means what. It means a few different things depending on the context. But in this context, it means two. We can't have this whole phrase without having que. Que is the glue that has to come in for it to mean to have to, tener que. I know that we've learned that an infinitive verb like trabajar means to work, but in this case, tener is a special verb, and we have to have that que in the middle for it to all stick together. So now let's talk about having to go somewhere. The first step is being able to say that you go somewhere. Now you remember that we talked in 3C about ir plus a plus the place. So that you can say, for example, yo voy a la peluquería. I go to the haircut store. Salon? Salon. I go to the salon. Now, let's try putting that together with our phrase that we just learned to say that we have to go somewhere. So tener que plus the verb means to have to do something. Well, ir, that's a verb, right? So let's put ir in the place of the infinitive verb and keep using that same formula we learned from 3C. Ir a place, to go somewhere. When we add those together, and remembering that ir is an infinitive verb, so it can replace this blue right here because it is an infinitive verb, it just goes right in that slot. We end up with this, tener que ir a, and then the place, to have to go to a place. Now that looks really complicated, but the good news is the only thing we have to change whenever we use it is tener. All we have to do is conjugate tener, and we're saying that I, you, or we, or someone else has to go to a place. So there's our formula. Let's give it a try. Tengo que ir a la tienda. I have to go to the store. And again, you could say yo tengo at the beginning. Notice that the only thing we had to change was conjugating tener and just plugging in a place at the very end. How about mi amigo tiene que ir a la barbería? My friend has to go to the barber. And notice that I used the él or ella conjugation of tener because mi amigo would be he or she. All right, one more example. Mi familia y yo tenemos que ir al aeropuerto. So you see, my family and I have to go to the airport. Mi familia y yo, that would be we because it's me with a group of people, so that's we. Tenemos, in the nosotros form, que ir al aeropuerto. Now what happened at the end here? Al. Remember, when we have a next to el, it becomes al. That's why you see it would have been a el aeropuerto, but they fused together and now we have al aeropuerto. That does not happen, as a reminder, that does not happen with anything other than el. You see up here we had a next to la and they stay separate. It's only when a is next to el. Alrighty, well, that is about everything for this unit. Good luck and please reach out to us if you have any questions. Thanks guys, bye.